Something is breaking, not a missile, not a tank, not a border. The architecture of reality itself, the invisible system that decides who gets rich, who goes to war, and who starves is cracking at the foundation. And almost nobody is talking about it. Here's the situation on the ground. The United States dollar, the most powerful weapon ever constructed by any empire, is facing a challenger it was never designed to fight. Not China, not Russia, not BRICS, artificial intelligence. And the people who built this system, the ones who controlled the global flow of wealth for 80 years, are running out of moves. What does this mean for every nation on Earth? What does it mean for every war currently being fought? What happens when the machinery of control breaks down completely? Stay with me by the end. You will never look at the news the same way. Welcome to Flashpoint, the channel where we cut through the noise, strip away the propaganda, and analyze the real forces moving the world. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We cover conflicts, power structures, and military strategy that the mainstream media will not explain. Now let's get into it. Let's establish the framework, because what we are dealing with today is not a single event. It is a system, and to understand the crisis, you have to understand the machine. Philosopher Plato described it over 2,000 years ago, prisoners in a cave, chained so they can only see shadows projected on a wall. Believing those shadows are reality, the prisoners don't know there's a fire behind them. They don't know there are handlers, people deliberately creating those shadows. Standing between them and the light, that allegory is not ancient philosophy, it is a precise, operational description of the modern global order. Here is how the machine works in concrete terms. At the top of the pyramid, not the United Nations, not the White House, not the Pentagon, sits the Bank for International Settlements, headquartered in Basel, Switzerland. The BIS, the central bank of central banks. Below it, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which write the rules. Below those, every national central bank on Earth, the U.S., Federal Reserve, the People's Bank of China, the Bank of England. And the entire game, the entire global economy, is engineered around a single mechanism, the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Here's what that means in dollar terms. Every time any nation on Earth buys oil, Saudi Arabia's oil, Russia's oil, Iraq's oil, that transaction happens in dollars. Every time a Vietnamese factory ships goods to a European retailer, that invoice is settled in dollars. Every time a Brazilian farmer exports soybeans to China, the contract is denominated in dollars. Each one of those transactions is, functionally, a tax paid to Washington, not written in any law, not voted on by any parliament, just built into the architecture of the system. And Washington can print those dollars at will, unlimited supply, captive global demand. It is the most asymmetric financial weapon in the history of warfare. This is the order that figures like Biden, Trump, and every Treasury Secretary since Bretton Woods in 1944 have been paid to maintain. Now here is where it gets critical, and where the current crisis becomes a genuine game changer. The global order is not just a financial structure, it is a military structure. The U.S. empire, aircraft carriers, forward bases in 80 countries. The 7th Fleet in the Pacific, CENTCOM in the Middle East, is not projecting power to spread democracy. It is the enforcement arm of the dollar system. The moment a nation tries to step outside that dollar framework, Iraq under Saddam Hussein, Libya under Gaddafi, Iran, North Korea, the military machine activates. This is why Russia and China play the game even though they hate it. They are inside the system, generating wealth, accumulating power, waiting. Iran and North Korea are completely outside, blacklisted, sanctioned, economically strangled, because they refuse to play by the rules. The system has a clear hierarchy of value. Raw resources, oil, lithium, wheat, are priced cheapest, despite being finite and irreplaceable. Manufacturing, Chinese factories, Vietnamese assembly lines, is slightly more valuable. Knowledge economies, European engineering, American universities, Silicon Valley, more valuable still. And at the top, pure finance, American financial markets, Wall Street. The derivatives instruments that generate money from money, without producing a single physical object. This hierarchy is not accidental. It is engineered. It ensures that wealth flows upward, from the global south to the north, from resource exporters to financial centers, and ultimately into the accounts of a small, mostly anonymous ownership class that has no flag, no nation, and no constituency. The tactical reality, the system has been militarily enforced for 8 decades. It has survived the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the rise of China, 9/11s, the 2008 financial crisis. And COVID, it is extraordinarily resilient, but it has one structural vulnerability it was never designed to handle: a competitor that does not need dollars to operate. That competitor is artificial intelligence, and this is where we are now entering uncharted strategic territory. The dollar system extracts and stores human attention and labor. Think about it in precise terms. Every human being who goes to work, who manufactures a product, who writes a report, who designs a building, they are converting their conscious attention into economic value. The dollar captures that value and routes it upward through the hierarchy. Artificial intelligence threatens to collapse that mechanism entirely, not because AI is ideologically opposed to the dollar. AI has no ideology, but because AI can generate economic value: a code, analysis, design, legal documents, medical diagnostics, military planning. Without human consciousness at all, without wages, without transactions, without dollars. If the primary function of the dollar system is to tax human productive attention, what happens when productive attention is no longer primarily human? Russia understands this. That is why Moscow is investing heavily in sovereign AI infrastructure outside Western platforms. China understands this better than anyone. Beijing's AI development programs are explicitly framed as national security priorities, not commercial ventures. The EU is scrambling to regulate what it cannot yet build. And Washington is caught in a contradiction. The tech companies driving AI development are American, but their products are globally accessible and structurally incompatible with dollar exclusivity. The result is what analysts should be calling, but rarely do, the first genuine post-dollar geopolitical crisis. Not a currency war, not a trade war, a war over the fundamental mechanism by which wealth is created and captured. The 3 pillars maintaining the illusion. Education systems that train compliance rather than critical thinking. Media organizations that repeat the phrase rules-based international order like a liturgical chant. And a cultural apparatus from Hollywood to social media that normalizes the existing hierarchy. These pillars are already cracking when the population can access an AI system that explains, in plain language, exactly how the extraction mechanism works. The game changes, not overnight, but the direction is irreversible. So what do we expect in the coming months and years? Watch for 3 indicators. First, aggressive moves by the United States to regulate, restrict, or weaponize access to advanced AI systems. Framed, of course, in the language of safety and democracy, but functionally aimed at preserving dollar system leverage in a post-attention economy. Second, accelerated de-dollarization efforts from Russia and China, but now explicitly linked to AI infrastructure. Building parallel financial systems that root around SWIFT and operate in computational rather than dollar-denominated value. Third, increasing instability in nations that are fully dependent on the current hierarchy. Resource exporters in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, as AI-driven automation collapses the manufactured demand for their cheap labor and raw materials. That instability will produce conflicts, proxy wars, migration crises, all of which will be reported by the same media apparatus as isolated, unconnected events. They are not isolated, they are symptoms. The cave is old. The fire is still burning, but the prisoners are starting to turn around, and the handlers, whoever they are, wherever they sit, are running out of shadows to project. This is Flashpoint, and this is the analysis that matters. Tell me in the comments, do you think artificial intelligence genuinely threatens the dollar order, or is this just the next layer of the same old control system rebranded for a new era? I want to read every single response, because this conversation is exactly why this channel exists. Stay sharp, stay skeptical. I'll see you in the next one.